The public discourse is saturated with kinetic threats. The U.S. Navy's search for a better interceptor missile is presented as the front line of national defense. This is a strategic misdirection. The real vector is asymmetric. Its objective is not destruction, but paralysis. The true weapon is silence. Analysts at CSIS and RUSI have modeled the prohibitive kinetic cost of a great power conflict. The simpler, cheaper, and more effective protocol is to sever the global economy's nervous system. The entire system, from financial markets to the supply chains dependent on Taiwan's chips, operates on a launch-on warning protocol of data flow. Cutting these submarine cables or blinding key satellites is not an act of war in the traditional sense. It is an act of economic warfare designed to trigger a systemic solvency crisis. It is the creation of a blind leviathan, a global power stripped of its senses, thrashing in the dark, unable to distinguish assets from liabilities. This isn't a scenario. It's a blueprint. While you are shown images of missiles, the primary theater of operations has shifted. The target is no longer cities. It's the signals that give them value. The objective is to make the system devour itself. No missile required. The motive is not ideology. It is solvency. A state, like any corporation, can go bankrupt. When domestic liabilities, pensions, subsidies, debt exceed the capacity to pay, the system requires a violent restructuring. This is not a war of choice. It is a balance sheet correction enforced with kinetic tools. CSIS analysis frames the conflict as a severe domestic liability for Russia. Facing an unpopular war and a deteriorating fiscal position, the Kremlin cannot sustain a symmetric, conventional conflict. The kinetic cost is too high. This weakness is the accelerant for a systemic pivot. When a state is too weak for a fair fight, it re-engineers the battlefield. The objective shifts from territorial conquest to inflicting maximum economic damage for minimum cost. This is the pivot to asymmetry. It targets systemic choke points, the single points of failure upon which the global economy rests. The adversary's calculus is simple. Why build an aircraft carrier when you can bankrupt the nation that builds them? The U.S. Navy's scramble for a better interceptor missile confirms this strategy. It is a reactive measure to an asymmetric threat that is exponentially cheaper to launch than it is to defend against. This isn't a war. It is a solvency crisis expressed through asymmetric violence. The central error in modern military doctrine is not strategic, it is mathematical. According to analysis from RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, we are witnessing a systemic solvency crisis play out in real time. The kinetic cost is now fatally asymmetric. A state invests $5 million in a main battle tank, a complex asset requiring years of development and a trained crew. An opposing force invests $500 in a disposable first-person view drone. This is not warfare. It is leveraged asset liquidation. The drone is not merely destroying a tank, it is erasing a multi-million-dollar capital investment for the cost of a consumer electronic. This extreme cost imbalance is the accelerant for a protocol known as the democratization of violence. The ability to project precise, standoff lethality is no longer a monopoly of nation-states. It has been decentralized. A high-value platform, once a vector of power, is now a systemic liability. Its very presence on the battlefield invites an economically ruinous exchange, making conventional armored advances a blueprint for bankruptcy. The doctrine is known as launch-on warning. CSIS analysis confirms it is not a choice, but a protocol. A systemic response to a detected inbound kinetic strike. The logic is simple. Ensure a retaliatory launch before command and control infrastructure is decapitated. The window for decision is measured in minutes. Now, introduce a new vector, a targeted cyber attack that blinds early warning radar systems. This is the fog of digital war. The screens go black. Is it a system error or the opening salvo of a full-spectrum assault designed to neutralize our response capability? The protocol forces the commander's hand. Faced with a total loss of situational awareness, the systemic liability shifts. The risk of not launching and being annihilated becomes greater than the risk of launching on a false alarm. Fear of paralysis dictates action. The digital blindfold becomes the trigger.